Hi, everybody. Happy Sunday evening and happy Father's Day to everybody. Make sure you type something when you come in. Hi, Mitzi. People finding me? So did everybody have a nice day? Did it rain where you guys were? I wasn't sure. It rained in Anamosa. I came down from Dad's house and it rained on me on the way home. And it looked like it was going to rain here, but hi, Deb. Hi, Jackie. Hi, Pam. And I thought it was going to rain on me on the when I got home, but it didn't rain. I think it might have sprinkled a couple times, but it got all dark and now it's all bright again outside. So how's everybody today? Did everybody have a nice Father's Day? I spent the day with my dad. We cooked and had steaks and did the dishes and all the normal things that we haven't gotten to do for a while. He likes me to cook the steaks on the grill for him. Hi, Marcia. So I do the cooking on the grill, and he likes to do the stuff in the house. So he does that, and bakes a potato for me and all that. So it was fun. And then we did. The. I got him a little gift for Father's Day. I didn't have really go anywhere to shop, so he needed razor blades for his razor. So I got him the blades and put the blades in his razor. So he was happy. His face was nice and smooth. So how is everybody this evening? Make sure you say something when you come in, so I know you're hearing me okay. Whoops, a second. Let me scroll down. Other people are. Hi, Colleen. Hi, Margaret. Is everybody hearing me okay? Hi, Pat. Hi, Jan. Yep. Okay, now I can see people. Sometimes my little scroll thing doesn't show up. I have to touch the little screen a couple times before it comes up. So great. Hi, Clara. Hi, Betty. All kinds of people tonight. There was a lot of people that said they were going to come, so we'll wait just a few more minutes. I wanted to show you though. Somebody last time asked. Hi, Linda. Hi, Sharon. Oh, hi, Sharon. Somebody asked about. Oh, hi, Debbie. Hi, Deb. So somebody asked last time. They thought that the little table runner would make the little saying would make a cute pillow, and these designs were made for the Hello Sunshine quilt, and I've done that quilt, and so these were the little pillows, the little bench buddies that were in that. So here's the little enjoy the little things. So they made it into a bench pillow, a bench buddy, I should say. Hi, Nita. And then there was one that just said Hello Sunshine. That was the name of the quilt. My dad is very well, thank you. He enjoyed his day. We made lunch and everything. So, and then there was one that says, I don't have a pillow form in this one. Sprinkle kindness like confetti. So I thought it was cute. So those were the little bench. So yes, it made a very cute bench buddy. So they did do that little design as a bench buddy for that quilt. It was in the back of the. They usually put about 4, 5, 6 projects in the back of the quilt books, and there are some in the back of the We Whisk You a Merry Christmas book. So we will talk about that a little bit tomorrow night. But yeah, so I thought they were cute. So what they did is they made it the same size, and I think they made it. I think you cut it out with a square ruler though. Maybe not. Maybe just the rectangle one, and then they just put the little edges on. So hi Judy. Hi Pat. Hi Stacy. So yeah. So that was it is made into a little pillow. It turned out really cute. I like to make the little bench buddies. They're fun to make. But tomorrow night, remember we have class tomorrow night, and we're going to talk a little bit about We Whisk You a Merry Christmas. Now, I know there's a few of you that haven't gotten your books yet, but I think if you follow along with the class, and of course it'll be recorded, then you can go back and watch the recording again if you need, and then you can see what I'm talking about in the book if you don't have your book. And I apologize, the books are coming, and so is the fabric. So the fabric company is a little bit interesting. So I called them, and I thought everything had been shipped, and I called them and nothing had been shipped yet. So now I assume that they got it shipped this week, because she promised me that she would ship it this week. So we'll see. So anyway, I'll let you know. So be watching for the fabric. So tomorrow night we will just have a kind of a chat. We'll talk a little bit about the book, how it's laid out, how you read the book, how you do the cutting and that type of stuff. I was hoping we would have had our fabric. That's why I set it on the 22nd, because I assumed we'd probably have our fabric. But we didn't. But we got plenty of time. So there's almost a month yet before we start. So anyway, that way you'll have time to you can go back and watch the video again if you need, and look at the book and that type of thing. Yes, Clara, that was very nice of Tim to do that. I appreciated it very much. So, okay, so tonight what we're going to do is we're going to, oh, it's hot. Yeah, the sun is really warm here. What time tomorrow night, Margaret? It's at 6 o'clock, so it'll be the same time as normal, but we're just going to have a class on Monday night too. I just need to I wanted to work it in, and I already had everything else filled, so I thought, well, we can just do a Sunday and a Monday. And that one's just going to be, we're going to kind of chat about, the cutting and trying to understand how to read the book and all that. It's a little bit, it's a little daunting when you open those books up for the first time and see all the pages and all the fabrics. So it's actually really easy once you get the hang of reading it. So I thought we'd just go over it. And then there are some really cute little projects in the back of this book too. Some little towels and I think there's an apron, and there might be a wall hanging. So I need to go back and look at it again. So, hi Mary. All right, so what we're going to do tonight is we're going to go ahead and we're going to quilt our little table runner. Okay? So I did this on my embroidery machine. Now, not all of you have the embroidery machine that I have. I do have a Brother Luminaire. It's very much like the Baby Lock Solaris. The other machines that have this function, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about Design Center tonight. There's a section in the machine that you can literally digitize your own designs. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. The other machines that have that are the Dream Machines and the Destinies. And then there's a new machine called the Stellaire that Brother has. Sorry, I've got an itchy nose tonight. The Stellaire, and there's a sewing embroidery combo and a sewing only of that. And then there's also the Baby Lock Altair is the combination machine. So those have that same function in it, that you can create your own designs in this area. The Baby Locks are called IQ Designer, and the Brother is called Design Center. So you can create your own shapes, you can create your own embroidery designs, and I've done all kinds of different things with it, but I like to quilt with it, and I can custom quilt my stuff. And the other thing is I can quilt, I don't know if you can see it very well in the camera, but you can quilt around the lettering so that it doesn't go over the lettering or the appliques in the center. And I'm going to show you how to do that as well. So what we're going to do, I have this hooped. We talk about what I did first. So what I did is I just sandwiched my top. So here's my little top. Make sure you make your backing and your batting wide enough, because we do need to put this in a hoop so you have a little extra to clamp on to. I made mine, I think 12 inches wide, And then my particular table runner, my topper before only had one of these little sayings. I did one on both ends, so mine's longer. This time it's about, it was about 30 inches wide or so that I cut this, so I'd have a little room to grab onto with the hoop. This is an 8x12 snap hoop, and I really like using the magnetic hoops when I'm quilting, because then if I'm a little bit crooked in the hoop, I can just give it a little tug and it'll straighten it out. So, and this is very simple to move around. So if you don't have any of these are up on the website, and we have kind of a special price on them on the website. They are, you can get all different sizes of them, and they are wonderful for doing this quilting in the hoop. For the, like the edge to edge, some of you have done edge to edge, and I use this for that because then it's so easy to hoop. I don't have to, try to get my regular hoops in, and I can do that. You can use your regular hoop to do this, it's fine, but these really work really well. So make your batting, or your backing and your batting, a little bit bigger so that you have something to hoop to, whichever hoop you use, and then what I did is I just pin basted mine together. You can see I've got the pins in there. I'm not a big sprayer. I don't really recommend adhesive sprays because they do get into your machine and it can gum up your machine. So I am pretty careful. I don't care for that kind of stuff. So I usually just pin based, and I'll just take the pins out when I'm ready, and I can put them back in if I need to. Okay, so what I did is I hooped, and there's no stabilizer. I'm just doing this just like I would do a traditional quilt sandwich. It's the backing, the batting, and the top. Now my batting is Hobbs 80-20. I kind of like the 80-20 because it's a little bit loftier, and it gives me just a little more poof to what I'm doing. So that's what I've got in here. I use this on my long arms, so I've got lots of little scraps. So, okay. So I've hooped this in my 8x12 snap hoop. This is the dime snap hoop. And they do make them, there's a few people on here that have other machines besides Brother Baby Lock, and they do make them for other machines too. I don't have them on our website. It's just the Brother Baby Locks that are on there. So most of you have a Brother or Baby Lock. So what I did is the first part of this that I want to quilt is going to be the tumblers here. So you can see I kind of scooched it to one side because we're going to have to like scooch it the other way to get this other bigger piece up here. So I kind of made it so I know I could get this part. So we're going to start in the center. I like to start in the center when I do these, just kind of you start in the center and work out just like you do any other quilt. And I'm going to go ahead, let's get this, I'm going to turn the camera here so you can see what I'm doing. Second. Okay, is there any questions about the batting or how to put this together? All I did was just pin baste my batting and my backing and my top together. And like I said, when I get ready to scan, I'm going to have to take these pins out because they might get caught on the foot, okay? You don't want to leave them in there while you're scanning. Okay. Now, I have a Luminaire, and the screen is going to look just ever so slightly different on the Dream Machines and the Destinies, and the Luminaire and the Solaris is going to look basically the same. The newer machine, the Stellaire, I have a few people that have those now, so that one looks more like the Dream Machine, so there's going to be just a little teeny bit difference, but it's not so much that you won't be able to figure it out, okay? This works so well, especially when you're doing the small things, that I just wanted to show you. And we're also going to do a little quilting. We're going to do some quilting on the We Whisk You a Merry Christmas quilt, so you can see a larger project that I'm going to do the same way. I've done this a couple times, but it's always been a small project, and I wanted to show you that you can do a quilt. And I think I'll stick one more class in, like on a Monday night, because the Luminaire has a new feature now that actually does borders. It has a border function, and I can go around the border. It's just awesome the way it works, and I thought you'd like to see how it worked. Okay? So, what we're going to do first is I want to do this row of tumblers. And I'm going to get my, whoops, there it is, my tape measure. So this is how I start. I always measure my blocks. Hi, Denise. Hi, Mary. So I'm going to measure my blocks here, my tumblers, and my tumblers are about 10 and almost 10 and 3/4. So I'm just a little shy of 10 3/4 by 3. Okay, so we'll have to remember that, 10 3/4 by 3. Remember, I had a little trouble with mine, so mine are a little short. And I'm going to go in first. Oops, second here. Get my thickness out of the way. We're going to go in and we're going to look in my design center, because I want to do a stipple on this. I'm going to do a stipple on my tumblers. That's what I did. I mean, it's just kind of whatever you feel like. I use the stipple. I have a tendency to like to use stippling like on around the lettering or around appliques, and then I use the more decorative stitches on the plainer parts of the quilt, just so that the block sticks out more, you know, so that it's not overpowering it. So I do like these decorative fills. So we'll do one of those tonight too. All right, so the first thing I need to do in Design Center, now I touched my Design Center. For those of you with baby locks, it's going to say IQ Designer. Okay, and here's my screen that comes up. So this is my little digitizing screen. Sometimes I use a mouse when I do this, because the stylus that comes with this machine is quite large, and it doesn't work very well for me. But what I'm doing tonight is simple enough that I really don't need to use a stylus, so I'm actually not using one. So the first thing I want to do is I am going to create my rectangle, which is my row of tumblers. So there's shapes in here. This is the shape tool with the square and the circle. And I want it to be, there's 3 different tabs here. This is just an outline. This is just a fill. And this is a fill and an outline. So I want it to be just a fill, because I don't need an outline around my stippling. I just want the stippling. So I'm going to click the second button, and I'm going to choose the square, because I need to make it into a special shape. There is another rectangle, but it's got the roundish corners, and I don't want that for this particular one, because then sometimes the stippling won't go up into the corners where I'm wanting it. So we're going to choose the square. I'm going to click OK at the bottom. I don't know if you can see that. There's a little OK button down here. Okay. And then that little shape comes up on my screen. But now I need to get it into the size that I want it. Now I do have this hooped horizontally, so the long way is going up and down in my hoop. So we're going to make it, what did we say, 10 3/4? It was just shy of that. I'll measure again to make sure. What do they say? Measure twice, cut once. So yeah, it's just shy of 10 3/4. So it's about 5/8. 10 5/8. So we're going to go to the size button. And I'm going to, I got all these different buttons. The top 2 will go in and out in what they call aspect ratio. In other words, it'll keep the size that the box is in proportion. But I need to make it skinnier and narrower. So I'm going to use these little squishing and pulling tools instead. So I want to pull it up to about 10 5/8. Whoops, I overshot it a little bit. So 10 and about 5/8. Let's see here. We want to go down to about 625 for that. So maybe we'll go down just a hair. Let's say 10.6 inches. And then I wanted to make it, was it about 3? Is that what we said? You have to forgive me. I was up kind of early this morning, so I'm a little sleepy. So about 3 inches wide. So I want to squish it in. So I'm going to use this bottom button, and we're going to squish it in to 3 inches wide. Okay, oops, second here. There we go. And I'm going to go just a hair, just a bump under 3 inches, just so that it's not too wide. Okay? So now we have the size of the little area of our tumbler row. And you could do, like, you know, just the whole one tumbler at a time if you wanted to, but I just wanted that whole little strip to be the same quilting. So I'm going to click OK at the bottom. You may not be able to see it. Just a second here. There we go. Okay. And now I want to change this fill. I want a fill to be a certain type of fill. I would like it to be a stipple. So there's different sets of buttons in Design Center and IQ Designer. The top set of buttons here is the outlines. Well, remember we just chose a fill. So the bottom part of the buttons is the fill. So I need to change that. I want to change that by touching this button. If you have the Dream Machine, you have to hit the little button that looks like the piece of paper, because that's the properties. I have two places I can hit that button. So I'm going to hit this one, and then it brings up my region property box, and it allows me to, oops, a second, I might have a question here. Yes, Denise, you could use the tumblers, and in fact, there might be a shape that's the shape of a tumbler if you wanted to do each one individually. But you could also scan it and make it the shape you wanted. Yes, you could do that. So this is, there's a regular fill, just like a regular embroidered fill. There is a stipple fill, and then these are the fancy decorative fills. So I am going to use this later, but we're going to use the stipple first. Okay, so I'm going to grab that one, and I'm going to get my notes here because I have a few settings written down. And it doesn't matter what color it is, but what I do when I choose a color here is I want to make sure that the color is something I'm going to be able to see on my fabric, because I have a projection camera. That's the other thing I'm going to show you in the Luminaire, is I have a projector that will project this down on my fabric. And so I want to make sure I have something that I can see on the fabric color that I have. So I think, let me see here, if I chose a different color. I think I just chose the red. Yeah, I just chose the red on this one. So we'll keep the red, and I'm just going to click OK. Now we want to get this to be a stipple. Right now we haven't done anything yet. And we want to fill this with a stipple. So to do that, if you notice, there's a little paint pot over here, and this is a fill tool. So I'm just going to click the little paint pot, and I'm going to go over, and I'm just going to touch my rectangle. And look, it has stipples. So now it has stipples on it, because that's what I had chosen. I need to go to the next screen so that I can change some things about this design. So I'm going to hit the next button at the bottom, and this is going to take me to the screen where I can adjust some of my settings. Okay? Oh my, I don't know why it did that. We'll see what happens here. Looks like it's really big. I wonder why it did that. Interesting. Let's go back. It changed my size. Interesting. Let's cancel and try again. Sorry guys, that was weird. There was just an update in, but you know, it's always going to be when you're on camera. So we'll try it again. We'll just go get the rectangle and see if it does it again. Otherwise, we may have to resize it later. So we'll size it again. And we made it 10 and about 5/8 tall. That was very strange. I haven't used Design Center since the last update, because it was an update that happened about the time I did this. Okay, so 10.6 would be probably good, and then let's make it in here just a little under 3. We'll try it again. That should be good. Okay, and then we're going to go back and get the little, to the properties, and get the stipple, and click OK. And let's try something here. There's another thing in this little, where the little shapes are. Let's make sure that we don't have anything tied to a hoop. I wanted to make sure that I didn't have, this is the hoops up here. Sometimes if things are tied to the hoop, I don't want any of that to be tied to a hoop. So I'm going to make sure that there's no hoop sizes in here or anything. So I think we'll be okay. Cancel. Alright, so then we'll go get the paint pot and touch that again. So see, it looks correct here. So we have the right size. Oh, Denise had another question. I meant, could you scan what? having the hoop and build your rectangle over there. Yes, you could. Yes, Denise, you could do that. I think there actually is a tumbler shape in Design Center because there's a lot of shapes in there too, because then you could just do it yourself. Okay, so then, yes, so what you could do is you could just draw over this too, yes, if that's what you want to do. So then, all right, let's try this again. We'll hit next. Let's see what happens. Okay, that time it's fine. That was very strange. Okay, so now we have our little rectangle here, and I want to make some settings here. These are the settings for like the length of the stitch and how close together they are and how close to the edge they are, that type of thing. But I learned to digitize in millimeters, and I have a really hard time knowing how big things are in inches. So to change back to millimeters temporarily, I'm going to click this little settings button up here. This is your normal settings. And I'm going to go on my machine, it's either on 8 or 9 for most of the machines. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change it to millimeters temporarily so that I can see these, because I learned to digitize in millimeters. All right, so the length of the stitch is very short right now. And I'm going to click this and I'm going to make the stitch length just a little longer. Let's make it 2.5, which is kind of a nice normal stitch length. So we'll click OK at the bottom. Oops, there we go. And then the fill size 5.0 for this particular one. I've done a few of these, so you kind of, sometimes I have to sew it out just to see how close together. This is not a very large item, so the default at 5.0 works quite well. Some of them I use around 7, 6, 7. Some of them I use 9. It just depends on how large an area that I want. Okay? So then I'm going to leave this at 5 right now. And then the last thing is how far away from the edge it is. And it's good to be just a teeny bit away from the very edge, because that way if your design's a little off, it won't go over into the block next to it. So I usually just leave the default because it works quite well. The bottom thing is the type of stitch it is. On mine, I can choose between a single stitch or like a triple stitch on mine. And I'm going to stay with the single stitch for the stippling. Okay, so that's all the settings here. The Dream Machines do not have that option, but the stipple is a single stitch for those machines as well. Oh, Jan, did I touch something that had enlarged it? It's possible. I may have touched. I have trouble with touch screens with my fingers, so sometimes they do something that I don't want them to do, and sometimes they won't do the things I want them to do. So, okay. So I think I'm happy with these settings now, and I'm going to hit the set button at the bottom. And I'm going to hit OK. So here's our design that we're going to stitch out. And I want it to be, let's see here. I might have to, yeah, I think I'm ready. I think I'm okay with that. I'm going to hit embroidery. And you can see that it's just the stippling. There's no outline or anything around it. It's just the stippling. But now we need to get it lined up in the hoop. So give me a second here. Let's put the hoop in the machine. Now I am using embroidery thread for mine. You can quilt with basically anything you want. I often use embroidery thread when I do these. You can use, sometimes I use my long arm thread. So I'm going to move this over so you can see. I'm going to take these pins out before I scan, because I don't want my foot to catch any of these pins, because it will do the whole hoop, and I don't want any of these because they kind of stick up and they do get caught. Ask me how I know, because I have gotten them caught and then it rips everything out of the hoop. So we'll take all these pins out of here and get them out of the way. But I put them in so that it kind of holds. Once I get it in the hoop, I don't really need them anymore. It kind of, the top kind of sticks to the batting. Okay, I think there's one more back here. There we go. Okay. So now what I want to do is I am going to scan what's in my hoop so I know where I'm going to put that rectangle. So I am going to hit this button. It looks like a camera. It's the same. It's slightly different place for the Dream Machines, but it still looks like a little camera with a piece of paper behind it. And that is the one that you use for scanning. So I'm just going to hit the scanner, and I'm going to hit scan. And it's going to scan my hoop. So I'm going to put this down so you can see it scan. Because we're going to use two items for this particular one. I'm going to show you the projector too. So I like to do the scanning first. So what I do, so here, see, it scanned it up on my screen. I like to grab my design and kind of get it kind of roughly where I want it. That looks pretty good. Oops, hit close. And I often need to use the buttons. I have a little trouble, so I'm going to hit the button and layout and then move so I can get my little moving buttons here. And we're going to get it kind of organized about where we think is right. That looks pretty good. Might be a little narrow, so I might possibly have to slightly enlarge it, but we'll see what happens when we use the projector. So the new machines have this new projection camera, and it is awesome because you can really be very, very precise where your design is. So I'm gonna after I scanned it, I got it approximately where I feel it's going to be right. Now I'm going to use my projector. My projector is right next to my camera on this machine, and it looks like a little cone, and I'm going to turn that projector on, and it is going to project my design down on my fabric. And sometimes you can see this and sometimes you can't, because it's a projector, a camera looking at a camera. And let's see, let me tone this down a little bit and see if that helps. Sometimes if I use a darker background, you can see it better, but I don't think it's going to work very well for you. So what I'm seeing is this little bright light, and I can see the red. Remember, we chose red. I can see all the little red lines in here showing me where my stippling is. Okay? I can move my camera around. I only have about a 5-inch area, and I can move it around, and now I can see that whole strip from side to side, and I can see exactly where my design is. I wish you could see this better. I've never had good luck showing the projector on a camera because it's a camera showing a camera. Let's see if I can find a different color that might help a little bit. Sometimes you can see it a little bit with the darker colors. Oh, can you see it? Oh, I think you can see the red there. I turned it on black. Can you see the red? A little bit on the camera now. So I'm seeing that looks pretty good. I want to come down, and I'm going to pull the camera down now to the bottom so I can see the edges and see if it looks pretty good. And I can see it. It's a little light probably for you. And I'm going to go up to the next tumbler, and I think it looks pretty good. So I'm going to move it up a little bit more. Now if I were crooked in my hoop, so I think it needs to move over just a little bit to the right. There we go. I think that looks better. So I'm going to pull this down again, and I can see that it looks better on this one. I think you can kind of see the red now, can't you? And I'm going to pull it back down to the bottom and see if it looks good in this one. That one looks pretty good. All right, and then let's go back up. But the camera, if you see on my screen, I'll show you. With the projector, you only have it's about a 3x5 area, so you need to move this little red square around the screen to where you want to look. So I often like to look, like on this one, I can look through the whole tumbler thing, up and down on each one, just to see if I like where it's at. Okay? So that's what I'm doing, is I'm just touching that and moving it. I think you're kind of seeing a little bit of the red now. So I think the yellow one looks pretty good. I'm going to move it on up to the pink one and see if it looks okay. I think you can kind of see a little bit. I wish that it was easier to see on camera because this is so cool. And then I can see that this looks pretty good, and it's not going to go over the top, okay? So I'm pretty happy where that is. So I did have to move it slightly from my scanned version, but this is like a precise placement that with the camera. So I really do like this projection camera. And sometimes if you put darker colors here, you can see it even better on the screen. So hopefully you can see a little bit, because I can see the red up on the screen when I'm looking at it up here it's up here in the orange right now. Okay, so I'm pretty happy where that design is right now. I'm going to then turn off the projector, hit OK. I have matching thread in my bobbin and the top. I'm just using embroidery thread. It's just white embroidery thread I decided I wanted to use for this. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sew this. So I have embroidery thread in the bobbin too. And we're going to quilt our tumblers. While this is sewing, are there any questions? Yes, Denise, you can do that. I usually measure, and then you asked if you could scan it in the hoop and build it over that. Yes, you can. It doesn't come up the same way. I usually just measure, and then I scan right before I sew. I don't know that it would come up correctly in the machine. Sometimes I have trouble bringing in, because what it does is it traces it. Does that make sense? When you can't bring it up in Design Center, because what the machine wants to do is trace then. It doesn't use like a backdrop. So I usually do the scanning right before I do the sewing, and get the size approximately the right size by measuring. So does anybody have any other questions about this so far? Is this making sense to you? I know a lot of you have these machines. Some of you don't, but I wanted you to see one way you can quilt if you have an embroidery machine. This Design Center feature originally came out with the Quattros, and there is a very limited version of this in the Quattro, which also has a scanner. So you match the bobbin thread to the backing for the project. Actually, I didn't, Betty. It's matching my top thread. But you can do that if you like. However you like your quilting to be. I have the matching white in the back. But my backing it's light colored. So I did match my top thread. But the Quattro originally had something like this. It is somewhat limited, but you could do this basic shapes like this in the Quattros even. That was the first version of it they had. It was in the second upgrade for that machine, and they did call it, I can't remember if they called it Design Center at that time, but it's very similar, and it had the ability to draw shapes and stuff, and then you can scan it in and drop the design over it. So oh my gosh, it's almost done. Yeah, it looks like it's sewing pretty well. But like I said, I like to kind of start in the center, and then work my way to the ends. These are very fun to do. I've done quite a few of these table runners, and it goes very quickly. That is correct, Jackie. There's no projector on your Dream Machine, but the scanning ability is quite accurate, so you should be fine just using the scanner. I use my scanner first usually, and then I finish do my final setup with the projector. And I don't normally have to move it very much. Okay, so there. So look, we got the whole tumbler area done with stippling. Okay, so now let's do the gray area over here. I'm going to have to rehoop this a little bit because it needs to be scoot over a little bit. So let me get up and do that. I can keep from snapping my fingers with this thing. You have to be kind of careful with these snap hoops. They are pretty strong, and I often get my fingers with them. Okay. So I needed it to be scooted over just a little bit so that I can get the gray area here. Now, there's going to be an area on this one that's going to have the binding on it. So I'm going to remember I've got about 1/4 of an inch here that I'm going to use for binding, so I don't need to go all the way out to the edge. For one thing, I want to be very careful that I don't catch my foot on this open edge. So we're gonna bring in the design about 1/4 of an inch from the edge here. Okay. So let's do this one. This one here was one of those cool decorative stitches. So this is a decorative stitch that's in the machine, okay? And there's quite a few. Some of the machines have different designs. So hi, Lynn. So there's different designs you can use, whatever is in your machine. When I quilt these quilts, I often just, whatever seems to strike me at the moment, that's the one I use. And I use kind of a pretty kind of a diamond shaped one for this one. So let's see what we can find for this. So I'm just going to hit the home button. I didn't save this because I can always recreate it easily. So we're going to go back to the design center again. And I'm going to go back again to my shape. And again, I want a fill, because this is going to be a fill. I don't need the outline, so I'm just going to choose the fill and again the square. And click OK. All right, so let's measure this one. This one is, and remember, we're going to leave about 1/4 of an inch on the end. So this one is about 4 3/4 inches by, whoops, can't quite reach it here, so I may have to pull this out. There we go. So it should be about the same length, we hope. About 10 5/8. This one's a little closer to 10 3/4, so I was a little off. But I think it'll be okay. All right, so we said about 4 and, let's see, 4 3/4, maybe just a hair over 3/4. No, 4 1/2, sorry. I'm having trouble reading my tape. It's 4 1/2. So we'll go a little over 4 1/2. So again, this is going vertically. So we're going this way, so it's going to be about a little over 4 1/2 inches this direction. So we'll hit the size button. And whoops, I'm in millimeters again, so I'm going to go back up to my settings and I'm going to go back to inches because I can't figure out how big things are in millimeters. I just have to digitize in it. All right, so we're going to squish it in because it was too wide, so we need it to be about 4 1/2. Let's go just a little over 4 1/2 so we make sure we cover where our, let's see here. Yeah, 4 1/2, we'll make it about 4.6. Then we have something that it'll be just a little bit bigger, so it'll cover up with the binding. Okay, and then we said 10, what did I say, 10 3/4. Better measure again. If I don't measure again, I'll forget. Yeah, 10 3/4 long. Okay, just a little under that. So we're going to pull it out to about 10 3/4 and just a little under that probably. Let's see, we'll have to go there's the 10 3/4. So let's just bring it down just a little bit from there. So a couple of bumps, maybe just, 10.72 instead. And there's our long rectangular box. Okay. Now we also want to do this. This is going to be a fill again. So I'm going to go ahead. This is the properties for the fills. You can also hit the little piece of paper here, and it will take you to the same screen. Okay. I want to use a decorative fill this time, though. So I'm going to use my decorative fills, which are here. Depending on which machine you have and which upgrade you have, there are different numbers. Now I have a lot of, there's like 30 different ones in here. So the Dream Machines, like the originally I had like 10. So some of the first 10 were in the Dream Machine. And then they added like another 5 or so. And then when the Luminaire came out, we've got like 30 different fills. And then I got an upgrade. And I got like 6 more. So I have a bunch of I have like 36 on my machine. Okay, so let's see. Let's just pick a fun one. We'll do a different one than I did before. I did this little one here before, so let's pick a different one. Let's do the, I don't know, what do you think, guys? Let's do the, oh, this one's kind of neat. How about the little clamshells? I kind of like that one. So let's try the clamshells. I'm going to click OK. And then I think the red should be fine to show up on this light gray. So I'm going to leave the red and click OK. All right. So now what I want to do is get that paint pot again, because we need to set the design, set the stitches in there. I'm going to get the paint pot, and I'm going to just touch inside. But there's one problem. We'll have to fix this. I don't want my clamshells, because remember, if this is going up and down, I don't want my clamshells going up and down like that. I want them to be the other way, because I want it to go like, I want the round part to be to the right. So we'll have to fix this in a minute when we get to the next page. So I'm going to click Next. And this is where I can tell it different sizes. The default size is at 100%. You can make it a little bigger. You can make it a little smaller. Usually the default size is pretty good. It's a nice average size. If you want to make it bigger, you can. I think I'll just leave it at the default size for this one. This is the percentage. The next one is the direction. So I don't want them going up and down. I need to move this direction so that I think it's going to have to be 90 degrees. So let's see what happens if I go 90 degrees and click OK. Oh, there we go. See, it moved it so that the curved part is to the right. That's the top of my table runner. So that's the side way I want it. It gives you options. 90%, 105, so it just gives them to you in degree increments. So you just push it until you get it the where you want it, like that. So you can see it now. Then it goes all the way around to 360, and then so I wanted it at 90 degrees because it went to the right then, and that's the way I want it. Okay. Then the next button down is an outline. No, so for those of you with the Dream Machines and the Destinies, it defaults with the outline on. The Luminaire now defaults with it off. So I always had to turn the outline off because you don't want like a straight line around your fill. So I like to turn that off, okay? So we're going to turn that off, and I'm going to click OK. Then on the Luminaire, there's a couple of new things that are not on the Dream Machine. One of the things I can do on the Luminaire, the next 2 buttons, will allow me to skew these designs in the machine. And I can like squish them and make them different shapes. And that's what these 2 buttons do. And I'm not going to do that with this one. I'd like it to stay the regular shape. But that's what those 2 buttons do. So I have some skewing ability in the Luminaire that is not in the Dream Machine. Okay. The other thing that is not in the Dream Machine, this bottom button allows me to choose how thick I want this design to be. And I really like this feature because some of the designs were very thick and it sewed over it and over it. So I want to make it thinner. So this is the thick. It defaults at the thick setting, and I want to make it thinner. So I'm going to touch that thinner looking button, and then I'm going to click OK. All right, so now we've got our little clamshell design. It's pointed the right direction. I turned off the outline, and I'm going to go ahead and set now and hit OK. So now we're ready to sew it. So if you give me a second, I'm going to change my thread. I'm going to use the gray thread in here instead of the white. So I'm just going to put some gray thread in my machine. Are there any questions? So we did the same thing twice. We used two different kinds of fills, but the procedure was the same for the two of them. So is there any other questions? Because when we do the next block, it's going to be a little different. Okay, so let's get the gray thread on the top. So I have matching thread in the bobbin and on the top. Okay, get that threaded. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to hit the embroidery button because we're on the embroidery side of the machine, and here's my little clamshell design. I want to scan this first, so I'm going to hit my little scanning button up here with the camera, and I'm going to hit scan. And OK. So it's going to scan what I've got on here to help me, and I think we're good with the area. I think it's going to work okay. I think I got it over far enough, in other words. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull this over so that I've got it about where I want it. I'm just pulling that over with my finger. Now see, I didn't do a very good job, so I'm going to have to hit my layout button. Whoops, I need to move this over just a little more. Hit the layout button, and it works better for me sometimes with the little bump buttons. Now I'm seeing that this looks just a little bit, it looks a little bit long to me. And so I may need to adjust the size of this just a little bit because it's kind of going to stick over into my white, and I don't want that. So I can also fix that. We'll have to hit the return button down here. I need to go back because I think I need to resize it just a little bit. I think it's a little too long. So I'm going to hit the edit button, size, and then let's just squish it in a little bit. Maybe just a bump or so. So here's the button I'm going to use, the one that squishes it in. And that might be better. And then I think it might need to be just a hair-ish wider. So I might do one bump out. Okay, so let's see. That looks a little bit better. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes I get the measurement off, and I have to adjust the pattern just a little bit. But usually it's very little. Okay. So I think I'm happier with that. Let's hit embroidery again. And I think that looks better. So let's hit the layout button and move. And I'm going to kind of move it down this way over towards the tumblers. That looks pretty good. And maybe up a bump. And let's hit OK. And now let's go ahead and turn on the projector. So I'm going to turn on my projector. And on this one, let's see what color looks better. They give me these little boxes down here, so I can run it with different colors. Like there's a white, and I can really see it with the white, but I'm not sure if you can. Let me see it with the gray. I can see it, and you might be able to see it because it's not quite so bright. Can you see the color? Oh, yeah, you can kind of see the red, can't you? Can you see it? So I'm going to go up here. Let's go up and look at the top of this first. So I'm going to move my projector up here to the top so I can see. I'm a little bit low. I want to look at the bottom and see where I'm at down here. And it looks good at the bottom, so I probably shouldn't have made it any shorter. So I'm going to have to click OK. I think I need to, bump. Remember, we made it just a little shorter. I think I need to go back to the previous screen, hit size, and go back out again. So I'm just going to hit that bump back out where it was. And then I'm going to click embroidery again. And then I'm going to hit my projector. So when I do this, this is what I have to do, is I have to kind of go back and forth and make it be the size I want it. So let's pull that projector down again so I can see, and I wish you could see a little better. I can really see the red really clearly. Okay, let's move it up just a little bit because there's the little bumping buttons. So like on the screen, this one here, the box, is my projector, what it's looking at. These buttons here allow me to move the design while I'm looking at the projector. Okay, so they have both of them on the same screen, which is really cool. All right, so that does look better. So let's move it up here to the top and do the same thing. I want to see how I am up here. That actually looks pretty good. I'm going to go back down to the bottom again. I go back and forth a lot because then I like to look at the corners to see if the corners are going to be okay. And then I will look at the centers too, but I just want to make sure that I've got this centered where I want it. And I do have it in the hoop relatively straight. So I am going to pull up here, and it's okay to do this. I'm going to pull this up just a little bit so that it doesn't touch my white, because I don't want my white to get touched. And I'm going to pull this over here. Let's look at the other corner. And I think that looks good. And I think it could actually move back to the left a little bit. So I'm gonna hit it a bump over. I think that looks better. I just use the little moving buttons. Let's check it down here towards the middle. So I just move down as I'm going, and I can see my red. I wish you could see this better because it's very, very obvious. I think you can see it sort of though, where the design is. And so you can be extremely precise with the camera. Okay, and I'm gonna give this just a little pull. There we go, because that was a little crooked there. Now I'm gonna go check the outside edge to make sure it's okay. I don't want it to be off the edge. It's a little close, so hopefully we don't have any foot issues. I'll be watching the foot pretty close. Yeah, I think it's going to be okay, but I am going to watch that foot pretty close. The other thing you can do is sometimes I'll take a piece of the white tape, you know, the paper tape, and I will put it along the edge here so that I don't catch anything. And I might actually do that because it's very, very close in a couple spots. So I might put some tape down here just to kind of cover up that edge, because I've caught too many times and then it pulls everything out of the hoop. So we'll just do that, just very close, just to hold it down a little bit. I think it'll be okay if I do that. So when I'm working with these little things, and if they're really loose on the edge, that really helps a lot. And if it sews into the tape a little bit, it's okay. All right, I think I'll be happier with that. Okay. So I think that's good. I think I've got it where I want it. I can turn off my camera. Put my camera down just a little bit more. So okay. And I think I'm happy where this is. So let's see how we did. Everybody cross their fingers. We're going to watch this sew. And I think I got into my white just a little bit, but it's not that bad. So normally these take just a few minutes. These decorative ones will take a few minutes to sew. And then I wanted to show you one block before we ended tonight. You'll do both of the end blocks the same way, so we'll just do one tonight. All right, so here's our design. It's a going. This is going to be cute. So are there any questions so far? Is this making sense to you? For those of you who have these machines, there's quite a lot of you that have one of the machines that will do this. But this is such an easy way for me to quilt small items, and I can make it custom. It can be completely different than anybody else's. You know, everybody's will be whatever kind of, you know, at the time just happens to hit me is what I use for my designs. Or has everybody gone to sleep? So see, I made this the single stitch, so it does actually stitch quite quickly. I'm just using a number 11 embroidery needle like I usually do. Sometimes when I sew, do some quilting, I will put a number 14 in. It depends on the thread that I'm using. When I'm using my quilting thread from my long arm, I sometimes will put a number 14 needle in, just because the eye's a little bit bigger. This is going to be cute. I like this one. I think I used this one on my Kimberbell quilt, on my, what's it called? Jingle All the Way. And I did kind of a plain block because I wanted you to really be able to see. Is this the top of line? Yes, it is, Jan. This is the Luminaire, and that's the top of the line. And then the one right below this is called the Stellaire, and that one will also do this function. It does not have the projector in it like this one. And it has a camera. The new version has a camera, but you have to use like you have to use an app and like an iPod or your phone to take pictures of the hoop. Instead, it doesn't have a camera built into it like this one does, but it still has this function available to it. The Dream Machines had the camera built in it, so a lot of people have Dream Machines and Destinies. I really like the projector. The projector has really changed the way I work with this machine because I can really get things exactly where I want them. That was kind of a wow when I sat down at it for the first time, and that projector was just awesome. This is looking pretty good. So it usually does kind of the center, and most of it is a continuous line, so you're not going to have a lot of starts and stops. It will have a little bit of starting and stopping on the edges sometimes. But this one actually is pretty much going to be continuous, I think. So I did pretty well on the left side. It's not going to go over into my tumblers. I think I did pretty well getting it centered. And what I do is, you know, if you get your design in there crooked, you know, if you get it in your hoop crooked, you can also rotate the design just a little bit. I've had to do that, but I got it in crooked. And then, oh, why did it start sewing at the top, Denise? There must have been a little jump stitch at the very top, so it often will do the jumps first. The rest of it was continuous, so it depends on the design. Some of them do that. There must have been a little break up there at the top because of the size of this. And it was a good thing that I put a little tape over that edge because it is going up towards the edge there, so. I have to kind of watch the edges when they're open. Yeah, it's going to sew into my tape a little bit, but I can get that out, so. Yeah, there must have been a little break up there. That's why it did that. Was this new this year? The Luminaire was new last year. My thread must be empty. Sorry, guys. I'm gonna have to tie a knot and wind some bobbin thread. Sorry. The Luminaire, the upgrade. Okay, so the Luminaire came out. This will be 2 years. It'll be 2 years this fall. Sorry. Last year they had an upgrade. So the upgrade for this, I thought I had plenty of thread, but evidently I didn't. So we'll just wind some thread, and we'll talk about the Luminaire. So yes, the Luminaire came out 2 years ago, and they did do an upgrade to it last year. The upgrade, I have to say, was awesome because it gave us that border function. There was a border function in the original machine, but it did not have the capability of the new one. The border function in the original machine was about 36 inches by 36 or something like that for like a border, so it was really small. But the new one will go 108 by 108, so you can basically do any quilt you want. And I did my Jingle All the Way quilt with it, and that border function, and I am going to show people how to do that because that is really cool. the border, because I'm going to show you that on the We Whisk You a Merry Christmas quilt. I just want to show you that border function. It literally walks you through step by step, all the way around the border. It splits it all up into the number of hoopings you need. It is just amazing, that border function. So if you've been considering it, I would highly recommend getting that update, because that was incredible. Because I do a lot of quilting, so whoops, second here. Okay, I'm sorry, I made it mad. There we go. So now I'm going to tie a knot before I start stitching again. There we go. So now it's happy. Well, we got it some more thread. Sometimes the machines get hungry, you know. So yes, I would tell you, if you like to quilt, buy the Luminaire upgrade, because it has that new border function in it. That's why I bought it. Had a couple of other things I really, really liked too, but that was the huge thing for me. All right. Almost done. So there is the little clamshells. I think was it done? Yep, it's all done. Okay, so there's my little clamshells. Now I noticed that I'm a little off at the top, but you know what? It's not going to show very much because I'm going to have stippling right there, so it'll be fine. I got one stitch of the gray into the white, but you know what? When I get it all done, you won't notice it. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to do these blocks that have applique, or in this case, just stitching. So we can also do these. All right, so let me rehoop this again, just a second. I'm going to turn it around, and I'm going to use the same size hoop. And so it's not going to be hooped at the top and the bottom, but that's okay. It'll be fine. We're not going to be very close. And the hardest part for me is getting it in here kind of straight. Kind of crooked, but you'll see, and I can fix it. Okay, so here is, I just hooped it, and you can see that it's not caught at the top and the bottom, but it should be fine. My block is a little crooked though, so I am going to adjust it slightly. This block is just too big to put in a 6x10 hoop, because it's just a little too wide. So that's why I had to kind of leave it in this 8x12. So might have fit in the 8x8 actually. I could have gotten my 8x8 out. That one might have worked, but I've done it this way before and it's fine. So we're going to get rid of these pins. And I'll do the other one. I'm not going to do the other one in class. I'm not going to do the other block in class because we're going to run a little over it if I do. But I will do the other one the same way with the same design we're going to create now. So I had a couple people recently that have been down for lessons that have wanted to do this. I'm also going to, whoops, second here. I'm going to change back to white again. And guess what, everybody? We may run out of thread again, so I might as well just wind a bobbin now while I'm doing this. So both my bobbins weren't very full. I didn't realize. It's only on live TV, you know, live on Facebook. All right, whoops, let's get this one out of here and we'll get the white. I'm going to go back to white for the block because it was a white fabric. And go. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So when we do these ones that have embroidery or say an applique in it, I want to make sure I didn't miss any questions. We don't want to sew over the stitching. You know, I don't want to sew over the stitching. I would like to sew around it. So there's a way that I can do that and create a stamp of my design. So what I do is I just bring up the design that I used to create the block. So we're going to go get that little design that we used last week. Oops, there's my door. Lost my bobbin door. we're just going to go get that little design that we used for this design, for this little block last week. Okay. So we don't need this one anymore. This is the one we created in Design Center. Yes, Betty, I do quilt the bottom also. So then I just measure it. It's about 3/4 of an inch. And it's the same length. So yes, I do quilt. I'm going to quilt that too, but I would do it the same way that I did the big pieces, just make it really skinny. Okay? So it's going to be exactly the same. I'm not going to do that tonight because I think you can do that one, but you just have to measure it and it's really skinny. All right? So I'm going to hit the house button and we're going to go back to embroidery because I want to get the design that I made my Enjoy the Little Things. So yes, I did do the quilting on that as well. I'm going to put the little clamshell on there. And on this one I put that little, I don't know if you can see it, if I put my camera up here, can you see? There was just a little partial design on the bottom. So yes, I'll put the little clamshell down there. So I'm going to go to my stick. I'm going to go to embroidery. We're going to bring up our embroidery design that we used for this block. And I'm going to go to my stick. And it was Little Things Table Topper. And my embroidery file. And here's my design that I used to make my block. And I'm going to hit set. Now this machine, and so does the Dream Machine, have this. This is awesome. So if you need to have a custom hole in what we're going to do, this is how you do it. It's very simple. I'm going to go to, I'm not going to hit embroidery yet. I'm going to hit edit. And there's a couple of buttons down here. The one I want to hit looks like a flower. On the Dream Machine it looks just slightly different, but it still has a flower on it. So we're going to hit that flower. And see what it did? It makes an outline around the design. And you can see the black outline. Now, this outline for this particular design is a little bit too close. I don't want it to be like all the way around the letters. I kind of like the letters in the middle. I don't really need a lot of quilting in the center of it. So in order to change the way the quilting is going to look, I'm going to change this distance. So let's see how this works. I'm just going to make it bigger. And so that it kind of just goes around the outside edge of my design. See how some of the lines are going away? I'm just making it bigger until I'm happy with the way I have it. Okay, there. That's better. So see, it just kind of goes up and around the letters. Instead, I might hit it a couple more times. There we go. So see, now I don't have all of those lines up inside. Because then what it would do is it would make all these little lines in there, and they wouldn't look really right. So I just wanted it to be around the outside edge. So I just kept using the distance button until I got it so that I had a stamp the shape I wanted. Okay? So we might even be able to, no, I think we're gonna leave it where it was. It's 0.084 on this particular machine for this one. So I've got my stamp. This is a stamp. So if you look at the bottom here, and I did this with every single block on Jingle All the Way. I just brought up the embroidery design and made a stamp the size of my applique, because a lot of those were applique. I'm going to hit memory. And it says, recall from my design center. Oh, it went to my design center. Look at there. Okay, so we're going to hit OK. And then we're done with the design. So I'm just going to hit the house button at the top and go back to the beginning. Now we're going to go back into Design Center. And we're going to we need to measure our block over here again. So now we need to measure this block. Oops. So I'm going to measure this. And it needs to be, I think it was supposed to finish 6 by 8, I believe. So hopefully we're pretty close to that. Yeah, I might make it a little longer. Maybe 8 1/4 so that it goes down a little bit towards the bottom so that my binding will cover it. So let's see here, maybe 6, a little, maybe a hair over 6 wide. So let's do that first. So we're going to make the box, because remember, we need a box. So we're going to get the shape that we did. Now this time, we're just going to make a box that's the size of our block. We're not going to sew it. You'll see in a minute. But we just need something to make a placeholder for the size of our block. So I'm just going to use an outline this time. So I'm going to get the outline, which is the first one, and I want a square. I'm going to hit OK. And we decided it's going to be size about 6 inches wide. So right now it's 6.19. So I'm going to have to go, move this up just a little bit so you can see it. We're going to go in just a little bit. So I want it to be just maybe a smidgen over 6. Let's see. We'll measure again to make sure. Yeah, let's go just a smidgen over 6. Just a little bit. And then the length again, let's see what we want. Maybe about 8. It's a full 8 1/2, so let's make it about 8 1/4 long. So I'm going to squash it. I'm going to pull it out to 8 1/4. There we go. So 8 1/4 by 6 and just a little over 6. Then we're going to hit OK. So this is the block, the representation of our block on the screen. So remember that stamp we just made. We need that shape so that it won't sew. We don't want it to sew over those letters. So the stamps are in the same place as the shapes were. This is actually called the stamp tool. So the stamps are there and so are the shapes. So we're going to hit that same button. And then look, remember the flower that we touched before? There's the flower. So I'm going to touch my flower and look, there's my stamp I just did. So I'm going to touch my stamp and I'm going to click OK. And you can see some of the other ones I've done here. They go away eventually. They kind of hang out in there until there's so many and then they disappear. And I'm going to click OK. And there's the shape of that stitching that I made. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now produce some stippling. I'm going to use stippling on this one. And I'm going to get my instructions. I can't remember what I used for settings. Let's see. Find my, okay, here's my settings. So I'm going to go to my properties again, which is either the bar here or the piece of paper. And I'm going to choose stippling, which is the second one here. And I think the red will work well again because it's a light color, so I'm going to click OK. And then I am going to go get the paint pot again, just like we did before, but this time I'm going to touch outside of the stamp that's in the center between the box and the stamp. So I'm just going to touch out there, and look, there's a hole in the middle. So it's like hole sewing. If you use software, they use the term hole sewing a lot. So I just created a hole in my design. So let's see here. Got to make sure that I got the right instruction. Yep. Okay. So we're going to click OK, or next. I'm sorry, next. So we can go to the next screen because then we can tell it again what we want. I am going to go back to millimeters temporarily in my settings. And I did do a little difference with the distance because it wanted to be a little too far away from me, so I actually brought it down all the way to 0 on this one because when I sewed it out it was a little too far away, so I thought I'll just bring it down to 0 on this one. And I want my setting, my run pitch, to be 2.5 again. I like that. That's a little bit longer stitch. And then I think I left the other one at 5, so we'll leave this one at 5 also when it comes to this is kind of like the density of it. Okay, so we'll just leave it at 5. And I think I'm ready to hit set. And I want it to be the single stitch, which is what this one is. Okay, now if you notice, there is a square around, there's a like an edge around here. That is that box that we put in, and it's a satin stitch, but we're not going to sew that. We're just going to sew the stippling, but it's just there to hold that in. We need a placeholder for that square that we created here. So that's the only purpose for that. We're not going to actually sew it. So I'm going to hit set and OK. And see, there's 2 colors, so the second one we're just going to ignore it. We're not going to use that one. And again, I am going to use my scanner. Here's my little scanner up here. I'm going to scan. So I don't have anything going to be in the way here, and we're going to scan. So we know where the block is. Okay, it looks like it's up on the screen. I think we did pretty well with the size, but it's a little high. So let's hit close here. And then I'm going to edit, move. I'm going to bring it down a little bit. And then maybe over just a little bit. Can't see very well, so we'll have to use the projector for the final. So sometimes with the white fabric, it's a little harder to see with the scanner. So I think that looks pretty good. So let's start with that. And then I'm going to hit embroidery. You can scan in the editing screen and on the embroidery screen. So I just scanned on the editing screen. Okay. So now I've got this up here. I'm going to hit my projector again and see how it looks. So I hope you can see a little bit of this. Let's see if I go down to the gray. Let me see, there's the white. So the white is so bright, I think the gray and the black looks better, because then you can see the red a little bit. The gray one seems to work about the best. Okay, so I'm looking at this, and it's looking pretty good. I'm going to pull my projector down, though. And I'm going to look at this inside left corner to make sure that my stippling looks pretty good. There. It looks pretty good. I'm going to go over here, make sure that I look good on the other side. Now, I'm kind of off. I'm not wide enough, so I think it actually needs to come over this way just a little further. And this one sometimes takes me a few minutes to get it set up, because I kind of look at everything. I'm going to go up here. I'm also looking at the design right here so that I can tell that it's not going to hit my stitching at all. Whoops. I think I just moved it out of the way. Moved it too far. Bring this back down again. I just touched the wrong button. See, it happens. Let's move it down just a little bit. There we go. I think that's better. Okay. Just move it up a little bit. Let's see how we're doing. But I'm looking at my stitching too to make sure that I'm not going to hit any of my stitching. Okay. I'm pretty close on this one side. Now I'm also noticing that my block is a little crooked. So I don't think that my block is quite straight. So I may have to do a little alter. Sometimes I can just give it a little tug and straighten it up. And that might have done it, because it was a little crooked. Let's go up to the top portion here. Okay. I think I'm going to go back down, because I think I kind of moved it again by accident. Yeah, we need to come down just a little bit again. Hit it down a couple bumps. Yeah, see, I'm a little off. I don't know if you can, you probably can't see it, but I'm noticing that I'm just a little crooked here. But sometimes if I just give it just a slight little tug, that's all I need to do. Alright, so I'm going to go over to the other side. And I'm looking at the pattern, and it's not touching my stitching. I'm working my way up here. Looks pretty good. I'm going to go on over to the side here. And remember, there is going to be some binding on the top here. So I might actually do a little taping again, because I noticed that I'm a little bit close up here at the top. So I am going to tape this down. I'm just concerned that it might grab it on me. So that's why I always keep my paper tape. This is that paper tape, that Kimberville paper tape, and it works great for this, because it comes off easy, and if you stitch into it, it's okay. So I think I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and just tape the edges down. Just in the very, very edge. I think it'll be fine. And when you're putting a whole quilt in here, it works fine. I quilted that Jingle All the Way quilt, and it was actually a pretty good size quilt. And I didn't have too much trouble with that in the hoop at all. And I just kind of moved it up, and if it was a little crooked, I just kind of moved it. And these snap hoops work really well. So if you start doing a lot of quilting, I'd highly recommend some dime snap hoops, because we got those all up on the website. And there's all different sizes of them for all different machines. So it really does work well. Okay, so let me put this back in here again. I think I'm happy with that. I'm going to go down to this bottom corner again to make sure I didn't shift anything when I put the tape on. I think we're going to be okay. Go over again. So this is what I do is when I'm quilting, is I just want to make sure that I'm getting it where I want it. And I just keep, and you can kind of see the red marks up here on the fabric. So, okay. So I think I'm happy with this. I'm going to go down here to OK. I've got it taped down. I'm just going to make sure that I smooth my tape down so it doesn't grab anything. Like that. And I've got my white thread in the bob. Whoops, I haven't got it in the, I got it in the bobbin, but I haven't got it, my machine threaded yet. Whoops. Helps if I put the foot up though, Jan. I'll put the white thread in the needle, and I've got it in the bobbin. Okay. And I think I'm ready to sew. So here we go. Everybody got their fingers crossed? So do I have everything turned off? Whoops, I bet I don't have my flipper down. See? Did you notice that my red light's still on? So when I quilt, I do this a lot. Did you notice that my flipper's not down? So see, the red light is still on. Whoops. I do that all the time because I cover it up and then I don't see it. Okay, so now my green light is on. The snap hoops, what they're called, Nancy, is they are dime snap hoops, and they are magnetic hoops. That's the official name of them, is dime snap hoops. I have them up on the website. They have all different sizes. I've got basically all of them. I've just been slowly connecting them. You could see the black around it too, yeah. But see, we're not going to sew that black. I just needed that as a placeholder, so we're not going to sew it. We're just going to sew the white. This is going to look good. And then I will do the other side the same way. And then I will do that little strip that Betty was asking about below the tumblers the same way that I did the big one. I just have to make it really narrow. And I'm going to have to turn again, you'll have to turn your little clamshells or whatever you're using to the right. So I turned it 90 degrees. And then I'll do my other block after class, so you don't need to watch me do another one, unless you would like to see me do the other one. Is this making sense to people, how I did this? This is very fun, and the setup takes a little bit of time, but it's really fun to do, and you can be very creative with what designs you use. Yes, the black line is like an outline. So remember, we had to make the representation of our block, Jackie. And you were not going to sew it though. I just want the stippling, but I had to have the line there to give me the line so that it knew where to go. It's just like a placeholder is what it is. So it's going around the bottom here. It's looking pretty good. I made this table runner a little longer, so this one will be cute. I put a block on each end. So my little one, I just did, the one side. This was the way the original tumbler was, the original little table runner was just one. So I made one on the other end. Make it longer. It's looking good. I did pretty well. I'm not going over on the trick is to try not to go over on the block next to it. So that's why I usually bring it in just a little teeny bit smaller so that I don't go over on the block next to it. But I have, and you know what? It really doesn't show that much. But it is looking pretty good. All right. So now this one, if you can see, it's a little bit puffy in the center because I've got kind of puffy batting because it didn't sew anything in here. But what I do at the end is when I press it, see how this one's much flatter? And see there's no stitching in the center there. But I just gave it a good press in the center and it took some of that puffiness out of it. Okay? So then what I'll do is I'll take, so this one looks good. It did really well. And see the black line is next, so I'm just going to ignore that and we're not going to use it. Then I will take the same design and I will do it on the other end because I've already got the design. So now I'll just re-hoop it again and I will do the other side. Okay, so then they'll match and then I'll do that last little strip underneath my tumblers and do it the same way and then I will put binding on. Okay. So that is one way to quilt. I mean, of course, if you don't have this ability, I know where you can get a machine that has it if you're interested in one. But you can also, traditionally quilt it, free motion it, do straight line quilting would be beautiful on it. So there's lots of different ways to do the quilting. But this is a really fun way if you have this ability in your machine, and a lot of them do now. So I just really enjoy quilting this way, and I feel like I have this beautiful custom quilted product, and people will never know I did it in my embroidery machine. So what do you think? Is that pretty cool? So I'll finish my other half up after class, and I'll do that little teeny strip at the bottom. After class, I'm going to do it the same way I've already described. So, okay. So does anybody have any other questions? I'm going to turn my camera a little bit here. Got my tape measure around my neck, so I'm going to finish it up before I turn it off tonight. So wasn't that fun? I really enjoy quilting this way. It's very relaxing. I enjoy playing in the design center, and there's so many cool fills now. And yay, Betty says yay. Yeah, Betty, you're going to have fun with this, aren't you? Isn't it cool? Then you can go back and watch the video again if you need some help. But it is pretty easy once you get going on it. And it just makes everything so easy. And look at the back. So the back's pretty too. Hold it up so you can see the back. So here's the back. And then like this part, the center part was gray. So it's a little darker. But then here's the white. So it looks real nice on the back as well. I like to quilt my table runners and my quilts this way instead of doing them block by block, because if you do them block by block, it quilts it and they look really nice, but they don't have the quilting doesn't go through all the layers, and then it doesn't look, you just have an open block on the back, and I don't care for that. I want it to look like it's been quilted on a long arm, and I just use my embroidery machine instead. Okay. So is there anything else? Now remember, we will have class again tomorrow night, and we will start talking about We Whisk You a Merry Christmas. So if you have your book already, have your book out, and I'll show you the stuff in there, and we'll talk about it. You might need, if you don't have your book, you might need a piece of paper to take some notes. And then when you do have your book, then you can go back and watch the video again. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow night. It'll be at 6 o'clock again. To kind of get us ready to cut out our fabrics and get ready to start in July, because it's about a month from now. So I wanted to give you, about a month to prepare. And then your fabric should be in, I hope, yet this week. So I will check on the order again on Tuesday. So yeah, the fabric companies are a little different than working with some of the other sewing machine companies. It's been different. So, okay? All right, so if you have any questions about how to do this, give me a call. If you need to come down to the store and have a little lesson on it again, we can do it together. But this is a good way to quilt these small items. Like I said, I quilted that whole quilt this way, and it was very easy. So it just took, you have to go block by block, and I just did what I wanted in each block. But it is very easy to do. So, okay? So if you have any questions, let me know, and I will be seeing you all tomorrow night at 6 o'clock again for We Whisk You Merry Christmas, and we're going to talk about getting started with that. So, good night, everybody. Thank you. Have a good evening.